They devalue their currencies to such an extent that our businesses cannot compete with them. Our workers lose their jobs.
So you make them in China and
you wouldn't know anything about it because you're a lousy.
Well, I don't know anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You bankrupted.
National investigative correspondent Michael Isikoff sat down with Trump and questioned him about his business dealings. We'll talk to Isikoff in just a few moments about his great interview that finally forced Trump to address the truth about his real record in business. The questions went to the heart of the very thing that Trump claims makes him a credible candidate, his business success.
You've clearly had some big successes in the business world, but you've also had some big failures. And let's go straight.
No, I don't think I've had big failures. Donald Trump has always been very, very successful. And so when you say failures, I don't think I've had failures, but let's go ahead. Ask me about a couple.
Okay, Trump hotels and casinos filed for bankruptcy protection 3 times in 6 years.
Okay, let me explain it to you. Very simple.
Isn't that a failure?
Not really. I mean, look, it worked out very well for me. It was very successful. I then levered the company. I took it public. So I had a relatively small piece of the company. And what happened is Philadelphia.
Wait a second, you were chairman of the board.
Excuse me.
You were chairman of the board.
I was chairman, but I didn't run the company. I had nothing to do with running the company. Management ran
You were
the company.
paid $2 million a year.
Excuse me. I didn't run the company. I'm just telling you.
So what were you paid $2 million a year for?
They devalue their currencies to such an extent that our businesses cannot compete with them. Our workers lose their
And so
jobs.
you make them in China
wouldn't know
and
anything
Russia.
about it because you're a lousy.
Well, I don't know
businessman.
anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You
I
bankrupted.
know. You know what?
I don't know anything about. You know what? Starting.
Excuse me, hey, Wolf, let me ask you, am I allowed to respond to this?
You're
guy?
allowed. You've been responsible.
Okay, well, no, I haven't. I really haven't.
He's talked to the whole thing.
As a presidential candidate, Donald Trump has no government record to weigh, but one way to consider the type of president he might be is by examining his business career, and particularly the way he handled his biggest crisis, the staggering debt he and his companies owed in the early 90s. Here with the story is Wall Street Journal news editor Peter Grant. Welcome, Peter. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Set the stage for us, if you will. What was Donald Trump facing in 1990? Did he risk losing his entire empire?
Donald Trump at that point was on the edge of the precipice. He owed $3.4 billion in debt, he and his companies, which he couldn't repay. Even more serious, $830 million of that debt he had personally guaranteed. So his creditors would have been able to push him into bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, if they had wanted. You also have to remember the time. It was in the middle of a recession. The commercial real estate market was even worse than it was in this most recent downturn. So things were really bad. And people who were in better shape than him had to file personal bankruptcy.
So it was a dark time. And what sort of debt restructuring did he agree to? Was he happy about that?
Well, he was happy because it saved him.
Right.
It saved his career and his company and his organization. But at the time, it was a very painful thing for him to go through. He and a group of banks agreed to a restructuring of a big portion of his debt and a plan in which he basically agreed to sell off a lot of his assets. It was also embarrassing for him. He had to agree to an allowance for his personal and household expenses.
None too shabby, though. $450,000 a month?
Yeah.
You had to somehow squeak by on that?
Exactly. Just about squeak by. But still, for someone of his ilk, of his celebrity and reputation to agree to that was a bitter pill.
One of the things that struck New Jersey Attorney General's office that has been for years very closely studying all of these sort of financial arrangements of Trump and Atlantic City, says that some of this debt restructuring was so complicated that even after all these years, nobody in their office really understands it.
Well, first of all, it was very complicated. There were many interlocking pieces of his New York properties and the casinos and bondholders and creditors. It was fantastically complicated. But in the course of the reporting that Ali Berzon and I did, we found that he intentionally kept it complicated. He intentionally managed the information in such a way that he was really the only one who understood what was going on, and it worked.
What about the contractors? Did they get what they were owed?
Well, the contractors working on some of his projects that had to go through bankruptcy, like the Taj Mahal, no, they didn't. It was painful for them.
Right.
Trump's explanation is they had already made a lot of money on him, and this was just kind of the way business is.
This is what we're going to have.
Here's
This
a guy that
president.
inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
Wrong. That is so wrong. We'll work on that. I took $1 million and I turned it into $10 billion. I borrowed $1
Then
million.
release the tax return so we can see how much money he
I
makes.
borrowed $1 million. I turned it into $10 billion, more than $10 billion.
Thank you.